You've got the whole industry here to move forward on. There's lots of potential, a lot of technology, a lot of interesting ideas being put forward, but it's going to go nowhere while everybody's at war with the regulator. What institution wants to have an account with leadership that's suing their regulator? I mean, how dumb is that? What's the difference between FTT and B&B today? I'm actually happy this is happening. This is a good outcome in a stalemate that's lasted over 3 years and stalled out the entire crypto industry. You could look at any index you wish, but probably the one that most people look at is the price of Bitcoin. Stalled out between 25 and 30,000. It's never going to go up for one singular reason. There is absolutely zero institutional interest in this asset. And there never will be while there are crypto wars going on between the regulator and the centralized and decentralized support services. And so you look at what's going on with Binance, that's a whole different set of charges and allegations. And then, of course, Coinbase, which has been bashing its head against the SEC 3 different rounds. It's time to stop doing this. I think the industry needs resolution. And frankly, I'm happy it's happening. I have my own personal ideas on how to accelerate this, but this is a good outcome. It's time we did this. We've been listening to that now from Brian, the CEO, for years. And how far has he got? Nowhere. And the bottom line is this. The SEC is crystal clear on how they feel about crypto. They're allowing about 200 different tokens there on that platform, and they consider them securities. And the CEO of Coinbase does not. Now, you can be Don Quixote forever. You can fight the windmills forever. You can take the leadership charge and say, I'm going to change the mind of the SEC and its staff. Or you can wake up and smell the roses and deal in reality. If I were a shareholder of Coinbase, I'd fire him. I'd get new leadership. He's done as far as I'm concerned. This isn't working. They've wiped out a majority of the market cap of the company since it's gone public. I think the winds of change are going to blow through that boardroom. I think you have to wake up and realize Gensler is crystal clear on what he wants. He wants to have Bitcoin as a security. I think it's really clear what they want. And I think I'd rather have that resolved. New leadership should go in there. And look, just a personal opinion. Don't shoot the messenger. This is how I feel about it. And if I were on the board, I'd definitely let my voice be heard. Go in there, work out a deal. And obviously they think it's a security. What's so wrong with that? You could get $1 trillion worth of institutional interest if you could finally get a resolution on this. Meanwhile, back at the farm, crypto's going nowhere. And the value of the Coinbase equity continues to decline. It's so obvious. And by the way, it's also getting really boring. I've seen this story so many times over so many years. Enough. Let's resolve this and let's move on as an industry. Let's turn the page. Out with the old, in with the new. Now, if that means we have to change management in places like Binance and Coinbase, who cares? You've got the whole industry here to move forward on. There's lots of potential, a lot of technology, a lot of interesting ideas being put forward, but it's going to go nowhere while everybody's at war with the regulator. If you look at the ACH or the wire transfer or the Fed wire or the SWIFT, these were all developed privately and then regulated by the government. These are payment systems that were digital of their time 30, 40, 50 years ago. The same thing can happen now. We could regulate stable coins and let the private sector develop them. I don't actually think the federal government's a good place to do technology. I think it's a great place to regulate, and I think they know that. So if we can get some policy on the Stablecoin Act and just deal with stable coins, let the free market determine which is the one you want to use. I would personally want to use a stable coin for transactions, faster, more transparent, more productive, less cost. I get it, but we can't do that until we resolve 2 things. Determine what that stablecoin is, what the rules are, and if the issuer has to be FDIC insured, great. I'm sure Circle, I'm an investor in, for full disclosure, would become an FDIC-insured bank to be able to issue. But also, the centralized platforms that hold it, in the case of Coinbase being so-called leader, they cannot continue to litigate with the SEC. What institution wants to have an account with leadership that's suing their regulator? I mean, how dumb is that? I think these debates go on every day. It's fine to talk about small or liquid companies, whether they have merit or they don't, but as long as you disclose it, you let those investors buy them as securities, and the SEC's allowed that, and they have for decades. And so if you listen and read between the lines, or just getting into this fray right now, Gensler's telling you, I want these to be considered securities, and I will allow them to trade on a platform that registers as a broker-dealer exchange. And they can debate all day long. Kramer has an opinion, Cuban has an opinion, I have an opinion. Who cares?
So
let the market be the market.
I
actually own a bunch of them, but not in the U.S. because I cannot own anything. I have an account at Coinbase. I've almost stripped it clean. So I don't want anything in there while they're at war with Gensler. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So I hold mine under the OSC permit or the regulation in Canada. You can also do it in London, Switzerland, Abu Dhabi. There are places where you can own these actual tokens and be compliant. The opportunity right now, in my view, is to simply say, okay, the leadership in terms of accounts is Coinbase. Let's hire somebody else that doesn't want to go to war. I mean, you've got to commend Brian for what he's built. He's a pioneer, but he's got so many arrows in his back that he's destroying value. Let him be the chairman or something. I don't care. But get someone else that Gensler and the staff can negotiate with and get a deal done and call these securities what they are, securities. And then you can have trillions of dollars come into this market that's been waiting for this asset class. I want that. I'm owning Bitcoin stuck between 23 and 30,000, knowing that one day this will get resolved. Here's an opportunity to resolve it. Let's go. Let's turn the page.
And one day when it gets resolved, does the price, in your opinion, is that when it just blows up?
100%, because then institutions and sovereign wealth funds will put in a 50 to 300 basis point allocation. They've already indicated they want to do that. And all of a sudden you have a real market that's liquid with a lot of fundamental demand. Listen, I applaud the original founders of this nascent industry over a decade ago. The Kryptonians or the crypto cowboys, whatever you want to call them. But they represent a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of invested capital globally. They are nothing burgers. And at the end of the day, we're never going to get anywhere until we get the real money behind crypto. The only way you're going to do that is stop fighting with the regulator. Those are serious allegations, including cross-pollination of accounts capital. I mean, you've seen this movie. It was called FTX just a few months ago. That BNB token is $50 billion market cap, and 10 accounts are 50% of the assets. If any one of those guys want to sell, it's FTX Part 2. They're trying to freeze the assets in the U.S. That's what you do in fraud. These are allegations to be proven in court. I mean, when you see a charge like that and you're an institutional investor, you don't stick around for the second part. You exit, you leave, you find another place to put your assets while it gets resolved. Because if you're a sovereign wealth fund, let's just speculate. I don't think this is the case, but let's say you're a wealthy individual in a jurisdiction like Zurich or in London, England, and you see those allegations from the largest regulator on earth that has unlimited resources to pursue them. Why would you even wait? You take your capital out. And these tokens that were the downfall of FTX, the FTT token, what's the difference between FTT and BNB today? Does CZ really have $54 billion of cash? I don't know. But if he doesn't, you're at huge risk. They'll go to zero like FTX did. Nobody knows. It's sheer speculation. But there's no transparency in ownership. You don't know who owns those wallets. They don't want to do business with somebody that's being charged with these allegations at the regulator level. There's no good news there. Zero good. Remember the reason that Sam Bankman-Fried bought back his equity from CZ for $2.1 billion was CZ would not disclose anything to regulators anywhere in the world, and FTX could never get a license because he had 20% ownership on their balance sheet. And that was a great move when those two went to war with each other. CZ bankrupt, that's the allegation that came out in the charges during the hearings on the Hill with the Senate Banking Committee last December. And that was the beginning of CZ's problems. All of a sudden, every senator wakes up. They're starting to get tired of all of these allegations and every 6 months having more crypto hearings when the next exchange blows up and goes to zero and $2 or $3 or $4 billion is evaporated. So you've lost all of that political support. How can you be surprised that Gensler is not going after him? And how can he be surprised? But this will not end well for him. And I think the real investment thesis that I'm going to make now, I'm going to start investing in regulated exchanges that have been so far unprofitable because they were competing against a behemoth in Binance that had no rules attached to it. Now, it's a different story. In a matter of a single day, that world has changed for him. And I say the regulators start to starve him of oxygen. And so maybe it's time to buy that regulated exchange in Abu Dhabi. Maybe I buy more of the Canadian regulated exchange. What about that one in London I was looking at? They're all interesting to me because the accounts will slowly
Interesting.
leave Binance and go to where they're regulated.
All right.